Hello, welcome. It's all for women's football. And that's the first hurdle cleared because I managed to get that name right and didn't balls that one up. So good job, Bazza. Well played, everybody. It is brilliant to have you here with us for our FIFPro Best 11 debate. And I think it is going to be a debate based on some of the angry musings that we've been hearing backstage. So why don't you come and join us? It's going to be hectic, I would suggest. Can't help but have a little boogie with that, really, can you? It's just a little bit of salsa and samba, and it's all looking good. Well, it's been announced. The FIFPro Best 11 realised that All for Women's Football were doing their show at 8:30, so they just knocked theirs forward by an hour so that we'd have something to talk about, which is really good. Just goes to show Connor really does have friends in high places. Brilliant to have you all along. Hello, gang. How are we all? We all looking good? Wave to the camera, smile, hi. You best look at that. Aren't they a motley crew? They're brilliant. Right, where shall we start? I suppose we're going to throw everything that I put out from the schedule completely out of it, I think. And I just want to kind of ask what you guys think. So it's been announced, and I'm not entirely sure how you're going to feel about this, but Mary Earps in goal. Now, what we will point out is this is from the 1st of August 2022 to the 20th of August 2023. It was, of course, the World Cup final day. So that's the first thing to understand. Team's been announced. It was 3 players from each position, obviously not in goal because you can't have 3 goalkeepers. 1 goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 attackers. And then the additional person was the player that got the most votes. And this is voted for by the players. So quite highly sought after. So yes, Mary Earps in goal, Lucy Bronze, Alex Greenwood, and Olga Carmona, who was, of course, the player of the match in the World Cup final with the 3 defenders. Ella Toone, Amata Bonmarti, and Kira Walsh in midfield. And poor old Mia, look at that. She's really struggling to hold it in. Lauren James, Sam Kerr, Alex Morgan, and Alessia Russo managed to make it in there too. So clearly, the other player with the most votes was in attack. So I'm going to ask, not for you to start giving the, I think this player should have been in there or any of that spiel. I just want to kind of ask, go around what your thoughts were when this came out, because we were live on a different channel when it came out for Connor. He wasn't too impressed. Let's just go into that, not into the detail of who's in there, but yeah, why don't you just sort of give us your initial reactions, because there's 9 World Cup finalists in that, but yet some people not happy. So we can go around in any order you like. Shall we go around in order of the people that I like the most? So Laura, we'll start with you.
That's me, Larson.
And then go around to Megan, and then Jess, and then Mia, and then maybe around to Connor. That'd be quite cool.
I was just shocked. I don't agree with it. I don't think a lot of people agree with it. I feel like a lot of people will just be going around echoing the same thoughts, but I don't know who was picking that. You see the sheet and you try and work out some kind of criteria. Like, even if I don't agree with it, I'm trying to look at it and think, okay, but what have they picked this on? Like, is it World Cup performance? Is it Champions League performance? And there just seems to be like no cohesion. Like, I can't pick a single factor where I'm like, okay, that actually makes sense. Like, nothing about it to me makes sense in any way whatsoever. Like, I try and pick a common thread and there just isn't one to be picked. And like, it's kind of like had a pretty decent World Cup, but like doesn't have to be that good, and like kind of just means that they were on a team that did well even if they themselves didn't do that well. Maybe we kind of recognize their name a little bit. Like, I don't really know. I don't know. I'm kind of lost as to what to say or what to kind of pick up on, because I just think overall, like, even from I didn't agree with the initial like shortlisting, and then from that shortlisting I thought, okay, maybe there's some clear players that they're going to pick, and it just seemed to surprise me even more when it came out. So yeah, for me it's just a bit of a don't know what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think the biggest question is, what do they use as their criteria? Because it's definitely not consistent. When I first looked at that, you'd think England were the World Cup winners and not Spain. That's what I thought. You'd look at that and you think, oh, England won the World Cup. They've got however many players in there. But no, England were the runners-up and Spain won. But you look at that and you wouldn't think that. And I think that was my first take from it. And as Laura said, there was some names that definitely I thought were going to be guaranteed to be in there that haven't been put in there. And yeah, I'm just baffled. And yeah, I'm looking forward to debating who we, thought should have got in, and, people that even missed out on the nominations as well.
Yeah, I think we are all just going to be sort of saying the same thing. But I love England, the Lionesses. I really do. And yet still, I look at that and I'm just like, how? I'm kind of like happy for them on one hand, but I just think also how, like Ella Toone is like my favourite player, but she had a terrible season, really, overall. Like, from what she can do, she was pretty poor. That's nothing against her. I think recently her form's been fantastic, but I think just using her as an example, because I can't, if anything, I'd be biased for her. Do you know what I mean? Because I think she's fantastic. I love her as a player. So I'm just so confused as to how this is what has been produced. For me, it just seems lazy, and we kind of see this quite a lot. It's just like, who's the biggest names in football right now? And then they've just thrown them down. Like, I am just confused. Like Laura said, there's no real kind of cohesion as how anyone's been picked. Alex Morgan, how is she there? Like, that, just because she is probably still just about the biggest name in America, I think it just does a disservice to so many other players that should be there. America have got a stacked squad. They've got some fantastic younger players coming through, or that are pretty well established already. And I just don't understand how Alex Morgan's still being selected. She was a quality player, but it's kind of diminishing a bit now. And same with most of the team, to be honest. There's just, for a lot of that, I think there's better picks. I'm not sure that I particularly agree with many of those options at all. It's, to me, yeah, it's just doing a disservice, I think, to kind of women's football in general. It almost just seems like a lazy way out, where they've just gone, right, who are the most recognisable names? Who was going to get kind of the most, like, bring the most fans in because they've got their own fan bases from outside of football, that kind of thing. That is what I'm thinking, because some of those players, some of the England girls, I wouldn't even rank them in the starting 11 for England, let alone in what should be the 11 best players on this planet.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. I'm going to back up everything else everyone's just said. When Connor said the team over when we was on All for United, I thought it was a joke, actually. I thought he was just mocking us. I was thinking, when's the real team going to be announced? And someone in the comments has just said about how, isn't it player chosen? So surely they'd understand that, or surely they'd know who the best players in the world are. It's really interesting because on the tweet, that's the one, on the tweet, it clarifies that it's been chosen by players. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm actually speechless. I'm speechless. I'm like Jess. I'm an England fan. I love him. Yeah. There's about 5 players on that 11 that I would have nowhere near it, and that for me is a little bit worrying. And it's not like it's just us that have this opinion. You have a look on social media at the minute, it's descending into chaos, because we're women's football fans. We watch it. We watched that World Cup. We've watched the seasons. Come on, players. What are we looking for here? What are we looking for here?
Yeah, this isn't going to be popular. I don't really mind, but I think I say it all the time. There is such a thing as a Lionesses tax. I think you see it in analysis, you see it in the way people are treated, and there's a protection of the Lionesses. And I feel like we're seeing it again with player-led votes, with fan-led votes, and all these kinds of things. There should be some Lionesses players in there. I'm sure we're going to get into the team itself, but there's a few, Kira Walsh being one of them, absolutely one of the best players in her position on the planet, like deservedly in there. But when you're looking at the rest, Jess said absolutely love Ella too. No chance she should be in that team. From the time period this is based on, she's had a brilliant last few months, by the way, but this is from the back end of the Euros, well, not even including the Euros, so it's when the Euros finished, so basically all of last season, including this World Cup. The German league, the Italian league, it's completely been ignored. There's not a single player from any of them even on there. And it's just like, I don't understand how you can ignore two of the best. Two of those teams, Wolfsburg got all the way to the semi-final last year in the Champions League. No players even, obviously Pop, I know was shortlisted, nowhere near it. And it's like, it just annoys me because I think you're going to hear this a lot, especially when I give my players that missed out on the shortlist. It just seems like there's so many players that just get overlooked. Yet everyone knows. We all watch football. We know that there's better players than what's been picked. And I think it's just, I don't know. I'm not incredibly surprised because when the shortlist came out, I was just like, what is the shortlist? I think we've all kind of said when we were picking our teams, it wasn't hard because there was so many, oh my God, like that player should be, that player should be. It was like, oh, I don't really know who should be in here because I don't really want to pick any of them and I can't put a strong case forward for putting them in. So, yeah, I think I agree with what everyone's just said. And I think a lot of those players in there, I don't even think are the best at their current club or at the club that they were at the time of when it was voted for. So I think there's a whole number of things. And I know what you're saying. Obviously, Lewis commented talking about being World Cup finalists, but we're talking about a team that didn't win anything. So they did. I know they got to the final. Spain did. Barca won the Champions League and dominated their league over there. Obviously, Bayern won the domestic league in Germany as well. All these teams seem to have just been overlooked just for a team that just got to the World Cup final. I'm not so sure. And, yeah, like Chelsea won the double over here. Hardly any players in there as well. So, to me, the whole thing just seems a mess and there's just no consistency, as Laura said at the start.
Well, as you can see, we have a very happy panel today. And nobody is more happy about being in this position than me because I love women's football. I'm well into it. My area of expertise in women's football very much ends on these islands. And I bring that up purely because is that a possibility that that's kind of happening elsewhere in terms of how these players are making the decisions they're making? Are they just choosing people that are in areas close to them or from what they've seen? The fact that every single player bar two are players that have performed in the World Cup final. Are we in a situation where that's what people are doing? Just to point out to you, all players must have appeared in at least 25 official matches. That's either in their domestic top flights or in the international level during that period. And again, when the players are choosing, they are actually told. So here's the fun fact, the process, because everyone was saying, how does it happen? Here's how it happens. They will pick the three players who, in their opinion, were the most outstanding in each of the following positions: goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. The goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 forwards, with the most votes in their position make it into the World 11. The 11th spot is assigned to the outfield player, not the goalie, obviously, with the next highest number of votes. So there was somebody taking the mickey out of the fact that it was a 3-3-4 formation. Could have easily been a 4-3-3, and everyone would have gone, oh, very good. That's a very normal position. As it is, the player that was fourth was obviously one of the ones up front, so hence why they got it. They're free to choose any of their peers, but the voting tool contains a suggestion list, and they are allowed to add other names if they're not mentioned on the list. So that leaves me to that sort of next thing. If you think about Big Brother, which isn't where I thought I was going to end up going, we had this conversation, but quite often some people would not vote to save a player or to save someone because they just thought they'd be okay. Have we sort of hit this sort of situation where instead of voting for people on the list, perhaps somebody else went, oh, I think this person's a little bit better. And so therefore, those people have been chosen and it sort of decreased the vote for some of these other players who maybe might have been a bit more noteworthy. Who knows? We're going to go on to the omission list, which I think is quite important based on where we were here. So we'll kick off with the goalies. We'll run around with those. The list for the goalkeepers to choose from initially was between Mackenzie Arnold, Anna-Katrin Berger, Naya is obviously there as well, Mary Earps, Christiane Endler, Zakira Musovic, and beautifully named Sandra Panos Garcia Villamil. This is going to get very interesting for me, but as Connor will tell you, I will have a go at any name. It's not a problem, and butcher it in the process. Now, goalkeeper-wise, were we all quite content with that? To be fair, we're going to look at all of your teams in a moment, but you all went for the same goalkeeper. There was no major dramas there. So we'll just run around very quickly, wrap goalkeepers up. Were there any goalkeepers you felt were missing off of the list? The final three, of course, were Arnold, Earps, and Neha. Do we agree with the final three, or was there anybody missing from that? But this time we're going to go in the opposite order because I like to change things up. Off we go.
Honestly, someone's just sent like Germany just ignored or something. Germany have the best three keepers for me around. Leipzig, Froms, as someone's just mentioned in the comments, and Marla Gross again, if I've butchered them, I do apologise. At Bayern Munich had one of the best defences in the world last season. Played every single game in it, not even mentioned. How? I don't understand what. Like, I think it just goes off what the thing in terms of what we're basing this off. What's the criteria? So to me, Germany's all three of those keepers have just been massively overlooked. Whether they should have won it, maybe not. I think Earps is probably the right shot in terms of last season and obviously going into the World Cup. But how not a single German keeper? Oh no, obviously you mentioned Katrin Berger there, but the other three, like, are we just? Yeah. Again, Luke, I hear your comment, but that's the World Cup. This is from last season as well. I'm taking the whole domestic season into account because that's more of a time period than just 6 or 7 games at a tournament. I think when you're looking at it like that, for me, the Bayern keeper should be there.
It's really funny we've just brought up that it's not the World Cup. We are considering the World Cup, but it's not just the World Cup because, in my opinion, that's what this has been based on. Because bar probably Kerr and Morgan, the rest of them we'd probably just put in for. I know Barry doesn't want to talk to me about this, but so I'll go back to goalkeepers. Yeah, I went for Earps. I think, brilliant season. Last season, did really well World Cup, so that was no problem for me. I'm really glad Mackenzie Arnold got the recognition I think she deserves. But in terms of goalkeepers, my knowledge on goalkeepers is pretty poor. So I'd say the right person won it. So even if other people got nominated, I still think Mary Earps would have picked up the trophy.
That was a beautiful moment, like from Inside Out. That wonderful, wonderful Disney Pixar film that sort of shows people inside their head. As Mia's just gone off on one and then gone, no, this isn't what Barry wants me to talk about. As if I'm in charge or something. You talk about whatever you like, Mia. Nobody is going to have a go at you. This is a safe space, my dear. You crack on, girl.
I was actually quite proud of her bringing it back in then because I thought we were going off on a tangent. And then the problem is I would have then gone off on a tangent as well. So it's actually probably for the best that it was all brought back in. But before I get too distracted, I do think the right person won it. I think Merps had a fantastic season or whatever you want to call it between those time periods. I think maybe, is it Froms? I'm probably butchering that. I'm so sorry. I think she was potentially overlooked there. Don't know what was going on. But like Mia said, I think the right person probably did win in the end. So it's not too, that section doesn't anger me too much, let's say.
I completely echo what Connor was saying about Bayern Munich's defence. They conceded 8 goals last season, 16 clean sheets. Like, that's a crazy stat across however many games that they played. And yeah, to have no keepers or defenders is absolutely ridiculous. So the fact that Gross didn't even get a mention or a nomination was beyond me. But I'd also like to point out, obviously Chelsea always seem to have 3, 4, 5 keepers on their books. But I do think if Musovic was more of a regular starter at Chelsea, I think she would have been in with a shout because I think she had an absolutely phenomenal World Cup. I remember watching pretty much all of their games and she kept her side in a lot of the games and was just absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, if she had played more consistently for Chelsea, which obviously isn't her fault, then I definitely think she would have maybe been in with a shout. But yeah, Earps deserve it out of the keepers that were in there and for what she did at the World Cup. You don't save a penalty in a World Cup final very often, do you?
Yeah, I went for Earps as well. I think it can be hard to dispute that, but I do think I think it's been put in the chat, but I also messaged Barry with Ndozi. I think she had a great World Cup with Nigeria, and then she played for Paris FC, came third in Ligue 1, I think, if I pronounce that correctly, Ligue 1 in France, and yeah, only conceded 18 goals, which in a league with PSG and Lyon is pretty decent season. Yeah, I just thought she had an incredible World Cup, and obviously we don't know what it's being based off, but I thought she was a pretty big omission from the wider list, certainly. But yeah, I think echoing what everyone else has said on Earps, she is a pretty clear winner out of those three for sure.
Okay, we're going to fly about a bit now, a little bit of to and fro. We're going to kick off with Mia. 4 out of the 5 of you did pick your omissions. One of you didn't really have any, so that's perfectly fair. But Mia, we're going to kick off with you. The omissions you said. Now I'm just going to run through the names because it's quite interesting what you all said. Defense-wise, the possible people you could choose from in defence were Lucy Bronze, Barcelona, Olga Carmona, Real Madrid, Alex Greenwood, Man City, Amanda Ilstedt from PSG, Ashley Lawrence, also PSG, and Mappy Leon and Irene Paredes from Barcelona. I apologise if I get these wrong. This is not my bag. I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not Nikita Paris. Midfielders, we've got Atana Bonmati, Claudia Pina, Fridolina Rolfo, all from Barcelona. Georgia Stanway, the only German nomination in defence and midfield there, and she's English. Ella Toon, Man United, and Kira Walsh from Barcelona. And the forward line were Jenny Hermoso from Pachuca and Tigres, Lauren James, Chelsea, Sam Kerr, Chelsea, Alex Morgan from San Diego Wave, Salma Parahuelo, I've lost that, help me, Paralelo, Salma from Barcelona, Alex Pop from Wolfsburg, and Leslie Russo, Man United and Arsenal, because obviously she had 2 bits there. So, Mia, you had some omissions, people that you thought should have been on that shortlist, but weren't. Do you want to tell everybody what who your 3 omissions were and why you felt they deserved to be on the list?
Of course. Well, I feel like the first one, I feel like this is probably someone everyone's picked, and if they haven't picked it, they're probably either forgotten or they'll be gutted that they didn't pick her. Ona Battier. The fact that she gets overlooked time after time after time is just criminal. She was superb for United. She has been superb for Barcelona. She was superb in the World Cup winner. Let's remind ourselves of that. She won the World Cup. Still no, she still wasn't on it. So I don't quite know what more she could have done. I don't think she could have done any more. In my opinion, she's the best. She's the best fullback in world football, and it's beyond me that she wasn't even nominated. Hopefully next year. I feel like she deserves some credit, some sort of like individual credit. Yeah, maybe next year. We'll see. Do you want me to go into my midfield as well? The whole 3? Okay. So I chose Ariana Caruso, which shouldn't be a surprise to people, really. But I also, Barry doesn't know this, I also am torn between her and Manuela Giuliano. So Caruso is of Juventus, Giuliano is of Roma. Obviously no Italians in that, which is, if we're doing world, then whatever, it's one of those. But probably Giuliano had a better shout if we're talking about what they did with clubs. Roma won the title in Serie A for the first time. Huge to beat Juventus. If no one knows about that, they won the league since its inception. So that was massive. They got to the quarterfinals of the Women's Champions League. They faced Barcelona in the quarterfinal, which they was, unfortunately knocked out. But they held their own at their own place. They only conceded 1 goal. It was only 1-0. So I think she's been crucial I think both herself and Caruso are really exciting players to watch. They are they are the drawers of audiences for that league. They bring people in, and for me, again, it's another case of leagues being overlooked. We speak about Bayern. Bayern, is one of the biggest teams in the world. The fact that only Georgia Salme is on there is criminal. Which again takes us back to the question of what are they looking for? What are you voting on? So yeah, that for me was my midfield. I could speak about those two for hours and hours and hours. I won't. I'll move on to my attacker. And again, I think this is really harsh that she's been left out. I chose Rachel Daly. And before I get Lionesses tax or WSL tax, she had a superb season. If we're putting in Lionesses, let's put in the ones that actually did a really good job last season. And for me, that's Rachel Daly. I haven't prepared myself well enough to tell you how many goals she scored last year, but did she break a record? Maybe she didn't. Anyway, she scored a lot of goals last season. She got a golden boot. Not bad for an English left back. Not bad. So yeah, I think when you've got, and you're gonna have to hold me back. Someone's gonna have to kick me out or mute me or something. When you've got Alex Morgan not only being nominated but then being put into that team, and Rachel Daly wasn't nominated at all, it's just furious. So I really do feel for Rachel Daly because again, you have one of the best seasons as a striker for your club, even though she plays for Aston Villa. Shouldn't massively matter. Yeah, she had a relatively good World Cup, but apparently not enough. Not enough. She's not as big of a name as Alex Morgan, so she can't go in. Furious, Barry. I'm furious.
Right, screaming even. But go on, Connor.
Yeah, no, I agree with Mia on Honor. So I'm actually going to pick somebody different because I think everyone's going to go for Honor Batty, and I'm going to let everyone else kind of say their piece on her. So I am going to go back to people are going to see my Scandinavian bias here, if you want to call it that. So I'll go for a Bayern defender. Then, obviously, I said Marla Gross, my goalkeeper, but I'm going to, again, so sorry for butchering them. I know Erlin's in the chat. You might be able to help me out here. So I'm going to go for Vigga Stottier, I think she's called, Bayern Munich centre half. I said they conceded 8 in the league. One of the only sides to beat Bayern Munich, to beat Barcelona, by the way, in 22-23. Hardly anyone beat Barcelona in last season. Bayern did it. So, another reason to have another Bayern defender in there. As I said, 8 goals conceded in a whole 22-game league campaign is ridiculous. So, yeah, I'll put her in there. And I said, obviously, Honor, but I'll let everyone else have their say on her. I know, right, I've kind of gone for 2 attackers here, even though I know I'm going to kind of shift one of them into midfield. Gura Reiten. How has she not made the shortlist of this? She was, to me, Chelsea's best player to me, she was the best player in WSL last season. She's got something like, I think overall, I'm just double checking this, 15 goals, 21 assists in all comps last season. What? In one of what is considered one of the hardest leagues, playing obviously with the team with probably the most pressure on them to win trophies, obviously get far in the Champions League. How she is not in there, I don't know. And Mohammed, you have got my last name, Caroline Graham Hansen. Again, another winger. What? What are we basing this off? I really don't understand what we're kind of looking at in terms of. I agree with what the next comment says, by the way. Norway's international form has probably not helped either of these 2 players because obviously their performance in the World Cup wasn't great, and in friendlies and things like that, they've not been great either. But the fact that Reiten and Hansen have both been missed out, I don't understand. Like maybe people can argue whether they should be in the 11 or not. I'm talking about who missed the shortlist. Those 2 should be on that shortlist 100%, especially when you look at who they're up against in terms of who actually made the shortlist. Just I know people don't like looking at just stats and facts and all that, and that kind of thing. If you're just going to base it purely off stats, Reiten should be in there, Hansen should be in there. If you're looking at ability, who's best to watch in the eye? For me, Reiten and Hansen are better than half of the players that are nominated on that list. I could go through a whole list of things. So I'll stick with those. I'll go for Vigga Stottier from Bayern, Reiten and Chelsea, and Graham Hansen at Barca. Because we're forgetting these teams dominated their leagues, right? Chelsea did domestic double, Barca absolutely bastard in the league, won the Champions League. I don't get it. it's very World Cup heavy, isn't it? I think that's going to be the theme of this show.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I mean, I kind of did a similar thing with Onabachi. I didn't put her in my misses, but it is very blindingly obvious that she should have been in there. And I did put a caveat of I've definitely missed someone. So that was the one I missed. And I also really agree with Connor with Wrighton now. So kicking myself, but I had a limited time period to think about this. So mine looked pretty Arsenal heavy. But I do think there's no Arsenal players from the season in there. Arsenal got to the semi-finals of the Champions League with an absolutely decimated squad, which means the players that were left over had to do something special. And I think Raffaele Souza not being near this shortlist, absolute disgrace for me. Like, she had a blinding season. She played so well, like, all year. And I think it's been really marked how much Arsenal have missed her this season. I know Brazil didn't do like amazingly in the World Cup, but you still have Pop on the shortlist at least, which is pretty equivalent. And I just think, I think it's kind of that again. It's not very World 11, is it? We're not looking beyond kind of Europe, and Raffaele is a huge omission for me. I had Nadozi in goal as an omission there, but we kind of already spoken about goalkeepers. And then I had Diani up front, and I think she did so well in League One. 17 goals in 17 games in the league. Like, I was between Daly and Diani, and I think the fact that Diani plays for like in the Champions League, Daly hadn't done that. I don't know. They're both very top scorers, I think, both in the league. So, I mean, debatable between the two. I think you could have either of them in there. But I think what's so clear about the shortlist is that it just feels like there's so many players that I would have put in ahead of them that it feels hard to kind of pick one from each position to go in. I kind of flick through. I mean, my immediate thoughts always go to Arsenal players. So I also had Katie McCabe up there just because I think she's dragged that Ireland team to a World Cup. She scored Ireland's first goal at a World Cup, and I thought she dragged Arsenal also throughout the season as a leader. I'd probably, hearing everyone else's, I'd probably put Wrighton ahead of McCabe now. I think for the domestic double and how well they've done. But I just think there are so many other players that you could make a shout for. Like I've everyone that I've heard is kind of like, yeah, they should probably have been in there. So I think, yeah, Diani and Souza for Raffaele definitely should have been there for me.
Well, Laura, I mean, you're being positive about Arsenal for once, and I didn't even think about those names. That's crazy. But yeah, I went for Onabachi. I think, you know, as everyone knows, she is the best fullback in the world at the minute. And, you know, Man U, you know, that right side haven't really been the same without her, really. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that one just baffles me. And to be fair, until Connor mentioned her to me earlier, it's one of those names that you kind of, because she's not in there, you don't think about it because she should be in there. I also kind of put two attackers in rather than a midfielder and an attacker. But I also went for Graham Hansen like Connor did. I think a lot of people, and yeah, some of my players I've chosen have been based on their performances in the World Cup, and obviously Norway they didn't have a good World Cup, and their international form isn't something that people look at and go, wow, even though they do have a lot of very individually talented players like Graham Hansen, like Wrighton. But she got 11 goals and 6 assists in 13 games in the league, which is, an unbelievable stat. And I think when Barcelona have so many Spanish players that obviously won the World Cup and kind of you think, oh, automatically they should go in, you then forget about the other Barca players that have made just as much of an impact, like Graham Hansen, in, storming the league, winning the Champions League. So I think she definitely should have at least been a nomination. And then I agreed with Laura, and I also went Diani as well. I think as well as her league form, she had an incredible World Cup. I think, France got pretty far, and she scored 4 goals and got 3 assists in 5 appearances, which is brilliant. And France definitely dominated most of the games that they played. And, you know, she just lit up that pitch every time I watched. I was like, wow. So, yeah, I agree with quite a mismatch of what people have already gone for.
Yeah, I think obviously the big one is Honour. When I was thinking earlier about who had been omitted, my brain just did a complete blank. However, as I've been sat here listening, I've just written out like a list. And basically, it's just every German and French player ever, to be honest. I just think like the amount of omissions is shocking. And I just had another look at that front four and comparing it to some of the people that have been omitted. You know, for me, Bunny Shaw last season, hate to say it because she was a City player, but ridiculous. You know, I think so. Her and Daly, I think, drew for the Golden Boot. Did they get 20 each? And I think Bunny Shaw got like 7 or 8 assists.
Daly finished ahead, didn't she, in the end?
Finished just ahead.
Just.
So, I mean, Daly again, fair shout, like Mia said earlier. But Bunny Shaw was ridiculous. I saw her play and she terrified me because every time she got the ball, I just assumed she was probably going to score. Just a fantastic athlete. And I just don't understand how she cannot be on the list at all. And then Russo finishes first, who was just not playing that amazing. I know I might be a little bit negative against her because she, you know, did the old snake on United. But I'm trying to be kind of as unbiased and as neutral as possible. And objectively, you know, I've said that Tooney didn't play amazing. Like, where's Oberdorf? And like, there's so many players that I think are just missing. Anyone from Wolfsburg, or we've already said Bayern. I think there's just so many missing. And Honour, just Honour. When will she get the recognition? You know, I don't think she got it enough at United. And now she's at Barcelona and she's still not getting it. And it makes me just very, very sad because she is a fantastic player. You know, we've already talked about Caroline Graham-Hansen again. And I think, Connor, you said Guru Reiten. She was incredible last season. She was by far, in my opinion, Chelsea's best player. Like, I love Sam Kerr, but I don't think Sam Kerr had an absolutely outstanding season. You know, players like her of her quality are always going to pop up and score you goals. But I don't think she was, you know, out of this world, next level good. But Guru Reiten, fantastic. And whilst I get the whole national team thing, you know, her national team aren't doing well. These are individual awards. This is for her performance. And her performances for Chelsea last season were fantastic. And again, it pains me to say it because I hate Chelsea. So I just think there's a lot of omissions there that just are poor, very poor in my opinion.
It was really interesting getting all of your omissions sent through to us because obviously Batio was the one name that came up in everybody's apart from Laura. Laura had obviously scouted further and wider than others. But yes, it was very, very interesting to see how her name came up on virtually all of them. Diani obviously got mentioned a couple of times. Carolina Graham-Hansen got mentioned a couple of times as well. So very interesting to see that. So as a result, we kind of had a plan for the show based on the fact that nothing would be announced. And as it goes, this is a breaking news, live sort of thing going on. It's all happening as we speak. I quite like it. I just did the FA Cup one over on the other channel as well. So I'm feeling like I'm very much picking up some practice here for future days. But what we're going to do is that I spent a little bit of time just putting these guys FIFPro 11. They picked from the shortlist that everybody else had to pick from. And then I got onto Canva, did a little bit of work. Now, this upset Connor ever so slightly because there's 1 or 2 players who may not be in their current kits. I would just like to say to anyone who's fussed by that, get over yourself, right? It was just a nice little thing that I tried to do. Let's not get pickety about stuff. It's still them. It's just a different bit of clothing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So there we go. So we are going to kick off with, and I'm only going to bring this up shortly, we're going to quickly have a mention as to whether or not they match up with which it won't, obviously, because if it did, this lot will be delighted. But we'll have a little look. So, Mia, we're going to kick off with yours first. Everybody, if you need to pick your nose or anything, now's going to be the time to do it, all right? Because you're going to be off screen for a bit. So there we go. This was Mia's best 11. And what you'll notice that we did there is we put the goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 attackers, and then the person that's on the corner flag isn't taking the set pieces. That was the 11th person from them out of everybody who they didn't choose. We put the best coach and the best player. I can confirm that everyone went for the same best coach. All of them are wrong. All of them are wrong. Stop picking your nose now, Mia. Good. Well done. So at least I warned you. Nobody will ever know whether you was or you weren't. But everybody went for the same manager. Completely wrong. Serena Wiegman won it. I'm sure we'll vent about that in a minute. But Marty did indeed win the best player, and everybody went for that as well. So very, very interesting. I also found it interesting because Jess mentioned Caicedo. Not anywhere to be seen in the best 11 forward lineup, yet she's in the top 3 for player of the year, which blows my mind when these sort of things happen. You know, this person could potentially be the best player in the world, but isn't good enough to be in the best 11. Does make me chuckle. So Mia, that was your team. We're going to go back to it very quickly just to throw it up so you can see. But you went for Leon, Paredes, Greenwood. That was 1 out of 3. So far you've got 2 right. In the middle, you went for Walsh, Bonmati, and Rolfo, which was another 2. So that's giving you 4. And then you went for Kerr, Pop, and James, which gives you another 2. So that's a grand total of 6. And you went for, and I've been practicing this, Parayelo. Sounds a bit better. As your 11th, and she was nowhere to be seen. So that gives you a grand total of 6 out of 11, which is better than 50%, which in GCSE level would be a pass. Do you want to talk us through your team just a little bit? Not as a whole, don't spend hours. You know, we've been here a long time as it is, but just sort of give us the highlights as to why you went for mainly focus on the 5 that weren't there. Why were they better?
Okay, well, someone in the comments has just said very Barca weighted, and I'll tell you why it's very Barca weighted.
Like
First of all, I'm a Barcelona fan. First and foremost, I'm a Barcelona. Please don't get that confused with anything I've ever said before. I'm a Barcelona fan through and through. The fact that Mappy Leon was nowhere to be seen is a criminal offence. She is the best centre-back in world football. The fact that she's not there, and this again fuels my fire about how we're talking about the World Cup, because she wasn't there. So, fuming. Right, anyway. Bonmati, obvious. She's going to win everything this year. She's obviously going to be there. She's obviously going to be my best player. Alex Pop, again, why on earth has she been just glanced over? I don't understand. She's one of the best and has been one of the best consistently for years and years and years. So I don't know. I give up a little bit with that. Kira Walsh, again, I keep saying the same phrase, but I actually genuinely mean it. She's the greatest CDM in women's football. That's not news. I'm glad that she is in this team. I'm glad that she's been recognised. And can I just say, earlier when I said about the team, I, off the top of my head, said that 5 players don't deserve to be on there. So I'm glad that I got 6 right, because to be fair, I think if you get more right, I'm actually gonna probably block you on everything. So let's not go for a high score. Have I mathed wrong?
No, you nailed it.
Oh, okay, great.
5-11, quick maths. I was praising you. But I was also trying to throw in a reference that puts me down with the kids.
Nice. Yeah, thanks. You did panic me slightly there for a bit. Manager, can I just touch briefly on the manager?
We're going to come back round, I think, on the manager.
Okay, no worries. Then I'm all done.
Because we don't need to talk about Bob Marty. Everybody's agreed that she's the best player in the world, and fair play to them for that. So, who's next on my list so that we can work out how well they did? Oh, it's Connor's 11, which will be a bit depressing because it depends whether he's had the chance to check it. So,
yeah, I've checked my pick.
should you need to. Here it was. So Connor obviously went for Earps in goal, which gave him 1. He went also for Leon Paredes and Ilestet. So in the defence, absolutely none, Connor. In the midfield, we've got Kira Walsh, yes. Bonmati, yes. And Stanway, no. So that takes you to 3. Kerr, Pop, and Parayelo gives you just the 1 there. So that gives you 4. And your number 11 was Rolfo, who was nowhere to be seen, unfortunately. So you got 4, meaning that at the moment Mia is winning. Now, you obviously picked a few players that Mia picked. Again, 7 to choose from there, Connor. Is this why you're so annoyed? Is it because you did rubbish?
No, see, that's a good thing. I'm glad I got low points because it means it just shows how bad that team is that's been selected. I think, right, so Ilestet I was torn between. It's such a weird one because there's so many. Obviously, Carmona's obviously a good shout as well. Paredes. Obviously, I went for alongside. I agree with me about it. Mapping on how it. I said this about half an hour ago. We're going to say this a lot. It boils down to what you did at the World Cup, which is why Pop's not obviously spoken about enough, and why Mappy Leon's missed out because her season last season was incredible, but obviously chose not to. Obviously, with the whole World Cup and things like that, which is somebody's reference in the comments. Kira Walsh, yes, she's one of the best midfielders on the planet, 100%. Same with Bonmati, 100% deserved. I went for Stanway over some of the other players. I can't actually remember the shortlist now. I was so annoyed about the 11. I'm trying to find what the shortlist was to see who we could pick.
In the midfield?
Yes, who was the
other? Marty, Pina, Rolfo, Stanway, Toon, and Walsh.
Ah, there we go. That's what I mean. So this is where I was torn in the midfield because obviously I've gone for Rolfo and Stanway in the end. But to me, I said this to Mia and Jess earlier, but Rolfo did play a lot of last season at left back as well. So I'm kind of thinking you could shift it a little bit and you could play her kind of in double positions. She can play further forward and at left back. So you can kind of slot her in there. But Stanway, I just wanted to buy and play her in. I just think I know they didn't obviously go far in the Champions, but they should have really beaten Arsenal with that depleted Arsenal side. Obviously took the advantage there and Arsenal did obviously turn that tie around. But so they were disappointed in the Champions League. I'll give them that. That's probably why Bayern have been overlooked a little bit. But yeah, obviously Pop speaks for herself. She is a proper centre forward, an absolute elite number 9. So yeah, Kerr. Yeah, again, it goes back to what I said at the start. We're choosing players. I can't really put such a strong case forward because if I was picking an 11, but if you ask me now who's the best 11 players in the world, probably 3 of them would make it on the list, 3 or 4. So it's really tough for me to really put a heavy thing. See, TJ, everyone else has got other people in the awards is World Cup heavy. I've gone Champions League heavy on mine a little bit, and yeah, as you obviously mentioned some of the others as well. But it's really hard because I really want to put a strong season. Stanway was one of Bayern's best players last season. That was my argument for putting her forward. The reason why Bayern won the league in many ways is because they beat Wolfsburg, and it was a Stanway goal that beat Wolfsburg in that game, which then obviously led to Bayern winning the title. So I think that midfield of Stanway and Zandrasil for Bayern has been exceptional, and I think we're seeing that more this season as well. So I don't know. It's really hard because I can't really put such a strong case forward for a lot of them, but yeah, Bonmati, I didn't really speak about Earps. Yeah, out of the 3, Earps is probably the one, but I wouldn't have gone for her had I had other options, is what I said on that one.
Okay, fair enough. Right, Jess, you're going to be up next. So here's your chance to sort your lighting out if you feel like you need to. So here it is. Let's see. She went for Mary Earps, surprisingly. So that gave her 1 point. Greenwood, Ilestet, and Mappy Leon, which gives her just the 1 point there. Puts you 2. Kira Walsh, Bonmati, and Rolfo. So that gave you 2 there as well. And then Jenny Hermoso, Pop, and James, which gives you 1. And your 11th player was Georgia Stanway, who was nowhere to be seen. So that gives you the total of 5, Jess, which puts you in second place at the moment. You've just gone above Connor. Again, a lot of you chose very similar players, but the one I was most interested in with you were the only person who put Hermoso into the 11. And I believe she was also another one who was in the run-in in the top 3. As we know, also embroiled a lot in everything that happened post-match, which caused a bit of a revolution over there as well. Talk us through a little bit as to why it was that you felt that she deserved to be in your 11 and then crack on with a couple of the others.
Well, first off, I will say that I struggled with picking my front players. Like out of all the positions, I think it was just my front players I struggled with the most, my forward attackers, because I just think there were so many better options out there. I chose her because I thought she had a good World Cup, good season. I won't necessarily say that I think she's absolutely stand out, but like I say, I kind of felt like I had to pick her. And I just feel a little bit like, same with Mappy Leon, kind of the whole scandal, maybe some of those players were overlooked when they should not have been. There's some quality names that just were not there. So in terms of other players, I'm just having to refer back to my list because I've already forgotten who I selected. Out of the forwards that I did choose, I really think that Pop, thank you for that, Pop really should have been there. She was probably the easiest one to pick, to be honest, out of the front three. And I do think James deserves to be there as well. She's getting more and more consistent with how she plays. I think one of the arguments for her in the past has been her lack of consistency, but I think she's just getting better and better. I'm also really happy that Kira Walsh is finally getting some recognition. We talk about, or we've spoken a lot about players that haven't been recognised when they maybe should have been. Walsh is someone that maybe for the last 2-3 years has been overlooked, and she really, really shouldn't have been. But for me, I think the biggest miss from that list is Mappy Leon. I think she's been absolutely fantastic. We've spoken a lot about like the Lioness tax and things like that, and it is heavy here. I think one of the comments is about saying that we're all picking similar people, but I think that's because we all just know and love football. And I think sometimes when you look at it objectively, we're like objectively picking the best players that we think, and they are the best players, which is why we share the same opinion on a lot of these things. It's just kind of crazy. Also, I completely forgot about Casado, that I had literally named her to Barry as one of my omissions. So I'm glad that he brought that back up because, if we're going for players that did well in the World Cup, she was fantastic. It just feels like with these players, it's chopped and changed. Some of them, it's like, oh, they've been selected because they had a great World Cup. Some of them have just been selected because they play for England. Some of them have just been selected because they were a big name a few years ago. So interesting, definitely very interesting. This whole selection has just intrigued me greatly.
Very interesting indeed. So we are very close to the end of our 11s. We've got 2 more to go. Megan is next. Let's see how she got on. So she voted for Mary Earps. So that gives her a point. She also went for Carmona, the only person, I think, to choose the player who got player of the match in the World Cup final, which gets her a point there as well. But she'd also go for Illustrator Mappy Leon, who were nowhere to be seen, taking us to just 2. Georgia Stanway, Bon Marty, and Rolfo. So that's just the 1 there in midfield. And Kerr, Pop, and Parayolo. So that's again just another 1, putting you level with Connor. But you did go for Lauren James as your 11th player, which gives you 5 as well, level with Jess. So off you go, Megan. Take us through it.
Yeah, so I mean, I was surprised that I was the only one that put Carmona in on my 11. I mean, obviously, you've got the Barcelona tax, but then, you have got other Spanish players that don't play for Barcelona. And I think she had a very, consistent season. And I mean, obviously, if you score the goal in a World Cup final that gives you the winner, then, you're going to be nominated for some form of awards, come the end of the year. But I think, every time I watch it, her close ball control, the way she can dribble past players, I just think she's a phenomenal player. So I think she went in there for me. People are going to probably say, and I'm also thinking the same, why Walsh isn't in my 11. And I am thinking to myself the same, kind of, why didn't I put her in there? But obviously Bon Matty easily went in there for me, and obviously I think everyone. But I've always been a massive fan of Rolfo, and she had a very good season in a very good World Cup. But then as we've said about, you know, Bayern Munich, I really wanted to put Georgia Stanway in there, and I think she had a consistent World Cup. She only got obviously the one goal in our opening game, but I think it's maybe because Kira Walsh obviously had those few games in the World Cup, you know, where she didn't play because, you know, we all thought at one point she might have done her ACL, but I just thought Stanway was probably the most consistent midfielder for us in the World Cup, so that's why I put her in over Walsh. And if we're talking about the front three, I actually probably wouldn't have put Sam Kerr in there if I had been able to choose from, you know, the likes of Graham Hansen or Diani if they were in there. You know, yes, Sam Kerr got a lot of goal contributions, but I don't think she was Chelsea's standout player last season. You know, I think it was Guru Wrighton, as Connor's already alluded to. And yes, she had a good World Cup, but I don't think she played at all in the group stages at all, did she? So she missed a good chunk of, you know, Australia's first part of the World Cup. Yes, they did make it to the semi-finals, but if the only reason I have put Sam Kerr in there is because of the options that I had. So yeah, they're the reasons for why some of those players were put in there.
Fair points. Now listen, there's a little bit of ragtagging going on in the comments here, and as the self-professed referee here, I'm going to step in and just ask the fighters to go back to the corners. I need to be fair to these five. They are picking. It was quite nice actually to be sat in this chair for it. Quite often I'm sat on the side where these five are sat, trying hard to shoehorn players into positions after Connor's thrown ridiculous rules in there. And I threw the rules in this time because we were initially going to just pick our best 11 based on whoever we wanted from the world. I felt like people just didn't have another 2 hours in them to sit there and listen to that. So therefore, we decided to go for one that was going to be closer to an hour, which we've nailed pretty much so far, which was to just pick from the shortlist. So with that in mind, can I also just point out, nobody on this panel has ever doubted Mary Earp's ability. It's never been said. Attitude has been questioned in very many places, but not just by the six of us. So you're going to be absolutely enjoying the next one, Imara, because you'll see the exact same thing. And that's because out of those three goalkeepers, Mary Earps was definitely the best. Obviously, if there was a fourth one, you'd go Fallon Tullis-Joyce, wouldn't you? So there we go. And you can BS us as much as you like, Imara.
I would also just like to say that, to be fair to Mary Earps, I know I bag on her recently on the AFU. I can't even think of all the names now. We've got this new show. During that time period, from just after the Euros until the World Cup, or whenever this confusing time period is, she probably was the best goalkeeper on this planet. And I will actually back her in this moment. Recently, less so. But between the summer of 2022 and 2023, which is the time period, she was the best keeper. I kind of gave a special shout out earlier to Fromes, but even if she'd have been in that shortlist, I probably would have still voted for Earps. Now, if that award was from like summer until now, I'd be a bit more like, probably not. But during that time period, 100%, she, in my opinion, was the best keeper.
Absolutely. You nailed it. You worded it exactly how I would have liked to have worded it if I wasn't sitting there just going, meh. Laura, over to you. Can you take the title? It's 6 to beat. As it stands, Mia's winning. And I can't lie to you. I feel like there's going to be just, I don't even want to put up with that backstage if Mia's won. So let's hope we've saved the best till last. So Laura went for, Mary Earps in goal. So that's a point. Paredes, Ilestet, and Lyon was 0 out of 3 on the defence. In the midfield, Bonmati, Rolfo, and Pina. So again, just the one for you there. Kerr, Pop, and Parayeo. So that's another one, giving you 3. And went for Kira Walsh, giving you a 4, which means you're going to be picking up the wooden spoon along with Condog. Run us through. What was your thinking behind the other 7?
Yeah, so my midfield, I kind of just went with the 4 and didn't really think about who was in the extra position. So Kira Walsh would be in a midfield 4 in no particular order. I think similar to what everyone said on that one, she fully deserves that credit and is a fabulous player. I've gone very Barcelona heavy, I have to say. Earps, against Mackenzie Arnold and Naya, I probably pronounced that wrong, but Mackenzie Arnold, yeah, okay, she had a decent shootout against France, but like, is she that good? I don't know. She's all right, but she did concede 6 against Man City last season. Like that counts as well. She didn't have a great season in the WSL. And then you got a player that's conceded that penalty against Lena Hurtig, and she can't go anywhere near my team, especially with that reaction. So it's got to be Earps on her own merits as well. But if we're looking at the other 3, it's definitely Earps. Illustrate, yeah, very, very World Cup informed, but I'm looking at this, I'm trying to find a criteria for myself, and I can't really find one because there's very slim pickings. So yeah, you're a defender and you come 3rd in the Golden Boot for the World Cup. You can get in my team based on who's this is on. Mappy Leon absolutely deserves to be in there. No qualms with that. I think Kerr, domestic double, semi-final of the Champions League. I think she's probably the best striker in the world right now. Like very, very good. Obviously, I don't think it's definitely her best season, but I think she's out and out. I don't even think she has to be scoring goals to be playing well, because she's just so good off the ball, and I think she will be a huge miss for Chelsea, which we've spoken about. Pariuelo, I think she had a great World Cup and played very well for Barcelona, so I think real talent coming through. I'm very, very excited to see her progression. But yeah, I think very similar to what everyone else has said in terms of there's not a whole lot you can actually say, oh, this is definitely why I want this player in, because it's kind of, right, who's kind of the best of an average bunch that I probably wouldn't pick if I had to pick the best lot. So again, I can't get behind my choices like, oh, this is definitely the best player. But that's the 11 that I would have gone for from who we had. Hopefully I'm not getting standard too much in the chat.
Fair points. So I'm going to throw this one out for a bit of a free for all. They did tell me she could come back to it as well. All of you went for the Barcelona manager. I've lost his name. The first name Jonathan. What was his second name? Help me out. I've lost it. Wasn't where I was going.
Giraldes.
Nearly remembered it. Him, Serena Wiegmann won it. So please talk to us about why. I mean, there's a little bit of a snort there from Connor, who's obviously not very happy about the fact that Wiegmann's got there. Talk us through it. Why are we so against Serena Wiegmann winning the Coach of the Year award?
I'll just keep it so brief. You got 2 managers. The shortlist was obviously it was Emma Hayes, well, wasn't it? On the 3 coaches that made it. 2 managers, won something, one didn't, and the one that didn't win anything has won the award. I don't get it. Serena Wiegmann is a world-class manager, 100%. About that, but you've got somebody in Emma Hayes won the domestic double. You've got obviously the Barca. Barca have got a very good team, and obviously, but you do need a good manager as well to go along with that. Absolutely dominated everyone in Europe last season. I don't understand it. Like, if England had won the World Cup, 100%, I think Serena then probably deserved it, but they didn't. Like, England didn't win the World Cup, and it should. I don't know. I'm just going to stop. To me, Serena shouldn't have won it. Should have been the Barca coach, followed by Emma Hayes, then Serena.
Anybody else? Fight amongst yourselves. I'm not going to tell you when to go. It's not that sort of show. Go for it. Go on.
I completely agree. I mean, obviously, I absolutely adore Serena. I think ever since she's come in for the Lionesses, she's absolutely, transformed the team. And obviously, yeah, we won the Euros under her. And yeah, we've won another Arnold Clark Cup and the Finalissima. But the Finalissimas, it's one game against a Brazil side, and obviously you can't sleep on Brazil, but they're not the best Brazil side that there has been in previous years. And the Arnold Clark Cup this year wasn't against the likes of Germany and Spain, teams that are up there in the top 3, 4, 5 teams in on the international stage in the women's game. So yeah, we've technically won things last year, but it's not like winning a World Cup or winning a Champions League or anything like that. And, if Emma Hayes had won the Champions League, if Chelsea had gone and won the Champions League, I probably would have gone for Emma Hayes. But Giraldes has, I think he won 3 trophies this year, the league, the Champions League, and I think like the women's version of like the Spanish Super Cup or whatever it was. He's won 3 trophies in one season, and I think that's his second season in charge of the first team, the women's Barcelona first team. Where can you fault that? And how does anyone else beat that? That's what baffles me.
Do you know what? I'd forgotten about the Arnold Clark Cup. How could I? Not only did Serena Wiegman win it once, but we've done it twice. And isn't that now like the Arnold Clark Cup's done and over, which means we will be the only ever team to have done that twice, 2 years on the bounce. So for that reason alone, maybe actually Serena winning was the right decision. No, I love Wiegman. I really do. Again, like most of the Lionesses, love them. But that is my own English bias. But I have put that aside, and for me, even Hayes I'd put above Serena Wiegman. It's got to be down to who wins things, surely, in some ways. And he's done such a good job with Barcelona. You know, again, I know we've said that their team are just fantastic, and they are. But managing all them names as well, you know, it's not exactly an easy task. You've got some big names in that team. So kind of keeping everyone happy, keeping the team sort of flowing, it's a big job. So yeah, that Lioness tax, it comes back again.
The thing is, if you're Geraldes, you win the title, you win the domestic title, you win the Champions League, and Meg, I think you've just said that they win another domestic cup.
I don't think they
What
won
else?
the domestic cup.
Oh, okay. Regardless, they've won
Two
two
trophies.
huge trophies. Huge. What more does he do to win that? He's going briefly touching on Serena Wiegman. Love that woman. Please do not get this mixed up. I absolutely adore her. And for personal reasons, I'm happy that she's won another trophy. Is it deserved? No. I don't think England played very well across the board last year. Their unbeaten run was always going to come to an end. It came to an end last year, February, March, whenever. And then from there, it was a really uncomfortable watch to be an England fan. It wasn't great football that we saw in the Euros, and we saw after the Euros when they was all full of confidence. It wasn't. And again, we've reached the World Cup final, which I know people are going to keep bringing up. But to be fair, when they announced that squad, that lineup for that tournament, I was shocked. I thought we're going out round of 16 best. So I think we rode some luck, and some teams that we played probably deserve to get through over us at certain points in time. So again, I don't think she was the best coach last season. I think Geraldes should feel hard done by. Emma Hayes is Emma Hayes. She wins it all. Again, I'm surprised she's not even had really a look in. Like, to be fair, Barry, when you've just listed the managers there, and when I was thinking about who the best manager where I think would be, I could get Serena, I could get Geraldes. I forgot about Emma Hayes, but she's done it all, and she's got probably again, I don't know how much individual recognition she's got for stuff like this, but she definitely hasn't won the best manager or best coach award. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but the bottom line is it shouldn't be Serena Wiegman's.
Superb job, gang. You've done an absolutely superb job. We've taken a big, stodgy group to play with there, and we've absolutely nailed it. You've gone through it. You've vented, which means you'll all sleep tonight, which is absolutely fantastic, and people will enjoy it or not. You'll notice we didn't throw too many comments up today, and that was for a variety of reasons, but we did save some of them. I did star a few, which I thought were quite interesting, so we'll throw those out for you now. Greenwood, absolutely, but bronze over Battier was a crime. Erling, right at the very beginning, spoke about how the team makes it look almost like someone paid for the show to be in London and for who they wanted on the list. A bit strange. There are so few Spanish players there. And James Newhill, at least Olga won the World Cup. Honor and Rolfo were better, but at least she has the trophy to show for it, which I suppose if you gave them the option, they would prefer. He also mentioned World Cup tax, but no Salmon and Honor is weird. Trebuchet, Morgan's 2022 season was great. 2023, was so meh. The eligibility dates are a little funky for US players, though, which is reasonable. TJ Morgan had 1 assist in 4 games and 0 goals. So, again, very, very interesting. James Newhill mentioned about Caicedo being top 3 is wild. TJ also pointing out the voters don't keep track of recent seasons, but again, that is the players. Andrew Wall mentioned that FIFPro 11 is very much Lionesses FC. You would have thought more Spanish players would have been recognised and made the side given they won the World Cup. I can confirm that with 7 Lionesses, that's a record for any team, men's or women's, that's ever been produced to have had that many players from one country represented. So there you go. That sounds quite interesting. Trebuchet, something said for FA's marketing the WSL and Lionesses, so clearly it's working on the players. And again, Sean saying it's the fact the players voted for it, which makes it shocking. This one caused a giggle for us all. Is this the Eurovision contest for football? Trebuchet, you mentioned someone should make a snubbed 11, and I think Mia's already on that. And of course, as we said, Aitana wins the best women's player. And what's quite interesting is we were going to talk about the Puskas Award potentially. I think that seems to always get won by the men, which is a bit naff, which is what it is. But there's going to be a new one, apparently. So there's going to be a women's award. It's not named after Puskas, obviously. It's going to be named after Marta, who got a special award. So that's quite cool. So there'll be the Marta Award for winning the best goal in the women's game, which is superb. There was one last message which kind of needed to be brought up, and that's what I've been scribbling away for. And that was from Mr. John Commode, who put in here, good evening all, hope you're all well. Great to see the same panel as last week, where you all go over everybody's predictions from last week. Well, no, we won't, because there's not a lot of time, but I've just been jotting where we are, and I have a winner. Well, I've worked out how many predictions we got correct from last week. So I'm going to throw that one out there. I can confirm that bottom of the pile with 11 predictions correct. Connor, absolutely, yes. He knows. He knows he didn't do well. He didn't do good. I mean, he went for Durham. He went for a few of the underdogs. It wasn't great for him. But then it gets quite tight after that. Mia, I'm afraid you came in 5th with 13, which is only 3 wrong. So it's a bit depressing. It's a bit like the WSL, this. You know, you get 1 or 2, lose 1 game or 2 games. That's it, you're out the running. So Mia in 5th. We then have a problem. It's a big problem, which is that 3 players tie for 2nd place, getting 14 out of 16 correct. There is 1 clear winner with 15 out of 16, and that was, they only got the Villa-Everton game wrong. Now, what I will say is this. Laura and Megan, fools. Absolute fools. And I'll tell you why. Because
Newcastle would win.
You allowed yourself to sit there and go, oh yeah, Newcastle, they're going to beat Manchester United. Oh, I think they've got a real chance. Can't possibly say Man United. I like Arsenal too much. Had you not done that, you would have been joint champions with our eventual winner. Sadly, it wasn't me, because I decided to go for Luton, so I did exactly the same stupid thing, but for the ERWFL, which means our winner, unbelievably, with 15 out of 16, she hasn't even got proper lights, but somehow she's got all the lights going on in her head because she's absolutely nailed it. Jess, you are the winner of our prediction rounds this time round. Well played, Jess.
Oh, it was never in doubt. Never in doubt. I don't know why any of you even tried to beat me. And just so you know, Mia, I will be specifically insufferable towards you because you are a loser. And I am not. I am the winner.
I think you've just
there, so both of you.
I think you've given Barry some money. I think.
I mean, I wish he was.
No, I'm just a footballing genius, a god, if you will.
This is the thing.
Did you mention you scored in the FA Cup as well?
Oh, have I mentioned that?
And that's what I was going to say. And I feel like it's the perfect full circle way to finish. I'll just throw this in. NT saying the gaffer's just giving everyone else a chance, which is very nice of him. But it does. It takes us round full circle, guys, because we've just sat here and seen that a former player has sat here, looked at the game, and chosen 15 out of 16 results right. So it just goes to show we've all sat here as viewers of the game, very much enjoying ourselves, picking it, but ultimately, it was the player who managed to pick it correctly. And it just goes to show that maybe we don't really know what we're talking about. If you'd like to come and chat more rubbish, come and see us next week. It's going to be absolutely great. But until then, it's time for us to go. So thanks for joining us. See you then.